Many of you know this past year has been pretty difficult for me physically. I've been sick far more than I've been healthy. In my entire life, I've lived with significant hearing. Something I've just learned to live around. Then a few weeks ago, I was diagnosed with a growth behind my ear, the kind that doesn't get better on its own, the kind that leads to a pretty invasive head surgery. The kind that makes the room feel suddenly very small. In that moment, something mattered far more than answers, far more than timelines, far more than outcomes. And Dan knew it. So Dan does what Dan does. He gathered the church. Many of you at the end of both services surrounded me and my wife in prayer. And the prayers that were lifted, they weren't polite, they weren't passive, they were bold. They were faithful, they were expectant, they were believing. I remember in that moment crying out to God. It wasn't polished, it wasn't clean, it wasn't pretty, but it was honest. I was scared, but I also knew I wasn't alone. And this church in that moment, they stepped in and they carried that prayer with me. I remember standing there as Dan called out to God. He did so plainly and boldly, consistently, mellow. He has a calm, just direct way of speaking to the Father that I envy, but he asked him to intervene, not hypothetically, not someday, but in that very moment, right then. And I know that God heard and God moved, and God did exactly what only God can do. We say all the time here at Pathway that we're a praying church. And I think it also matters that we testify when those prayers are answered. When I went in the very next day for the surgical consultation, the doctor was perplexed. Not only was the growth behind my ear completely gone, but my eardrum had pretty much been restored. Where there'd been a hole for almost 40 years, no hole existed. Later that afternoon, a simple in-office procedure was done that would address the constant sickness. I simply had some blockage in some areas behind my ear. I remember when the doctor looked at me and said, "I don't know what's going on." I looked at him and confidently said, "I do. I serve a good God." But what's crazy is with my healing came partnered something else. As they punctured the drum and the procedure that afternoon for the first time in my life, I could hear fully. Something I could have never expected, something I wasn't even hoping for. God didn't just restore what was broken, He healed what I'd lived without my entire life. And that's amazing, and that's awesome, and I'm thankful, but listen to me carefully because this part matters. I'm grateful beyond words for what happened, and I'll never stop thanking God for the miracle. I'm reminded daily with all the new sounds that I experience, the different sounds of even the snare drum. As I've told many of you, it rocks my world, and I still haven't adjusted. But my miracle was not my anchor. The anchor was this. Even if the healing hadn't come, my joy was safe. Because joy is not rooted in results, it's rooted to a Savior that reigns.